Rise up this morning, smiled with the rising sun. Three little birds pitched by my doorstep, singing sweet songs of melodies pure and true, saying, "This is my message to you." See, I can't be singing. I can't be singing, can I? I've had this bird. I've had this song stuck in my head all day since I did this reading for myself. Because I was thinking about the power of 3 cards. So I just did this reading for myself, and I just thought about how much I love this particular reading and how I do this for myself a lot. And then that made me think 3 cards. Just 3 cards, 3 little birds, and then I love Bob Marley's song. I'll probably get flagged for that little beginning. I don't even know. I'm going to put a link to the whole song, sung by somebody who is not sick, down below. But this is just kind of a random, again, because I can't really talk for an hour very well right this moment because I just get tired and I get winded and I start coughing. And so I've just been kind of thinking of little things to chit-chat about. And I have to say, I have a video also about the power of the 9-card reading, which I do think in tarot and cartomancy and playing cards, just like anything, the 9-card reading is so powerful and so versatile. I'll put a link to that below as well. But I also think that for me, the basis of a 9-card is a 3-card, right? You've got a row of 3, you've got columns of 3, you've got diagonals of 3. So that's kind of inherently built into the power of a 9-card. But there's so much. I very rarely, know a lot of people do daily readings and daily draws. I almost never, and I can think of a couple exceptions to the rule, but I almost never draw a single card. It just isn't, I guess, the way I like the way that multiple cards relate to each other. And so I just don't ever do it. For my chakra resets, I do pull a single card, but that's because in the end I'm going to end up with a 7-card message. So I think that's the only reason why I pull a single card on those. But other than that, I really just don't pull single cards. I think that there are such power to to see the way that the cards talk to each other with a 3-card. Generally, with a 3-card, I'm usually using it in 3 ways. So this card, this is one. So I did this reading as Within Without Advice. Now, we did a challenge, a Within Without Advice, for a month with a Mary Owl, because I believe this was a spread that's in the Mary Owl guidebook by Mary White, or Marie White, sorry. I always get those mixed up. Anyways, and so I did a whole month of, with the Mary Owl, of Within Without Advice. And it was a really powerful experience for me personally, and I know for a lot of people as well. And so it's one that I come back to all the time, because the first position is just tapping into what you need to know. What's that inner message that you need to know. And then the second one is, what's that outer message that you need to know. And then what's a piece of advice. So then as you're moving forward, what is a piece of advice? I really love advice cards when you are doing readings for yourself or for others, because it's great to give people information, but sometimes they just need to know, okay, well, what then? What do I need to do about that, right? So for example, with this one, this is with the Slow Holler deck that I've just been personally getting to know. I haven't read with this at all for anybody else. And this has definitely surprised me. I would not have purchased this. Lee sent this to me, and I, along with a couple other decks, and that he was, I think, purging, I'm not sure. And I would never have purchased this deck for myself, but there's something about this deck that is really hitting me deep, and it's a lot more. And I mean, the artwork is beautiful, and again, I do, as I said before, I do find it to be really cohesive despite the different artists because of the palette. But there's something about the guidebook, which isn't like, it's not like it's hugely different than what we would see the cards, but there's just something about the way that some of the cards are written that I find really poignant. So for this example, I have Fortuna, which of course would be the Wheel of Fortune. And I just like this planet. So this is my kind of an inner message. And so I'm coming out of an emotionally, March is a very emotional month for me, just with the death of my son, and his birthday is in March. And for me, it's one of the harder times. I know obviously somebody's death anniversary is difficult. Mother's Day is difficult. But I think his birthday is probably the most difficult because it's, you know, there's so many memories attached to it. And there's so many the poignancy is so strong. So March tends to be March tends to be one in which I need to ramp up myself. I'm going to do a video about kind of when you know something's going to be rough, what can you do to sort of get yourself ready for that. But my point being that March is a difficult month for me. And so, you know, when I read this, the planets wheel in their orbit, seasons creep and crescendo over the face of the earth. One thread is spliced and another cut. All we know for sure is that this too will change. We'll experience it all in time. This card signals an inevitable shift in direction. And it goes on to your normal thing. But there's something about that beginning, that beginning part that I just feel, you know, again, it's just a sentence. There's a lot going on. You know, are you pushing against the tide, or are you catching a ride on the wave? If you're fighting the tide, what can you hope to win, and what expense when we fight? So this was really poignant to me. Like, this made sense to, if this is within, you know, this makes sense. You know, this, all of the feels, right? We have to feel all the feels. From a Buddhist perspective, I believe in leaning into feelings, even though we very often want to run, right? I do believe, I don't subscribe to a Buddhist mindset of detachment in the way that I think people think of Buddhism with detachment. But for me, it's about leaning in. It's about feeling what is present here and now. And so... but the inevitability of change, and that you're going to feel it all. So don't fight against the tide. Like, how can you get through an experience? You're not going to win anything by fighting the tide. You've got to roll with it, right? Anyways, it just really appealed, or it really spoke to my internal circumstances, and what I believe about change and shifts and things of that nature. It reflects what was going on. So this is what's going on within, and it makes a lot of sense. And just I just think there's something very poignant about a few of the lines in each of the ones that I've read so far. And I haven't read through the book. I'm just kind of reading them as I do draws for myself. And so then without, we have the Nine of Knives. And again, this is about the mind. So yes, we're without, but we are talking about mental aspects. Of course, we all know this. And this is I'm guessing so far that I've looked at this, it's quite a Rider-Waite-Smith style. The Nine of Knives roils with anxiety, worries that loom above us out of all proportion. In this state, it can be hard to judge if we're justified in our fears. These anxieties may also manifest in lingering shame. Don't get lost in imaginary realms where you may confront monsters of your own creation. This one I didn't find to be overly... poignant, but I did feel this is how I often describe the Nine of Swords, that the Nine of Swords is about exaggerated emotions, or letting our minds get overwhelmed, and that there could be actual justifiable fears, justifiable pains, justifiable difficult situations, but we're not going to be able to deal with them if we don't bring it down a notch. So the nines to me are just about energy. It's not a little, it's a lot. And so if you also have internal emotions going on, these connect with your mind as well. And, you know, they kind of go together, right? So if we've got wheels turning on the inside and we've got knives in the position of 9, so high going on in the mind, we've got to bring it all, kind of bring it down to center so that we can deal with what is there. I really like this because what's interesting is that I always say with the wheel that the best way to deal with change is to learn to get in the center of the wheel, right? Because from there you can ride out. The changes are not so throwing you around. I love that there's a spool of thread here in the middle, sort of weave your own fate. Like start to pull on and cast the threads of your future. I quite like that. Anyways, I got sidetracked. But I think these together were quite interesting and kind of explained, though also because this is in the position of without, it's that understanding of if our minds are roiling, that is going to have an effect on our outer world as well, right? So then what's the piece of advice? You know, given all of this, what's the piece of advice here? So we have, in this deck, we have a visionary. So they don't have the typical, so it has a student instead of a page, a traveler instead of a knight, which makes sense. And then we have, instead of a king and a queen, we have an architect and a visionary. The architect of, or no, visionary branches. I don't know why I'm over here, but that's how the courts go. The architect of branches represents the translation of internal conviction into external reality. They've learned how to deploy their inner vision towards powerful action in the world. They're a mover and a shaker, bold but not impulsive, charismatic but not arrogant. They inspire others with actions, not words, and they lead by example. I think that's interesting because it talks about how are you creating space for others to glow. So while you may have that ability to glow and things and are feeling also vulnerable, but how can you then hold space for others? So given this, it allows the holding of space for other people who are in difficult situations. So, you know, this is, I love the way that she's, you know, kind of got her arms around this tree branch here and is holding space and tending to this beautiful tree here. And so I quite like that because it is because of these things, the internal things that I might have to work with, that's then going to allow me to then take some of that energy and go out and hold space for somebody else. You know, as a reminder to call somebody that I knew could have used a phone call and those kinds of things. So I use that as sort of an advice on what should I do. So I just used that as, okay, I called up a friend who I knew had was dealing with similar things, but then was able to then hold space for them. And so then that would be the advice that you might then take out of the reading. So, you know, it's a simple reading, and yet there's a lot of power there. I highly recommend, if you haven't tried it, that you do try it. Another 3-card that I use, so that's one I use a lot as a 3-card. Another one that I use a lot, and I recommend this a lot especially to new readers. I recommend it at nighttime very often, especially if you're a new reader. But this is sort of, you can use this, I use this for moons, but this position-wise is something to let go of, something to hold on to, and something to keep kind of move into. I guess that would be the best way to say it. So if you're doing it at a new moon or a full moon, it's like, okay, what do I need to let go of about the last month? What do I need to hold on to about the last month? And then what do I need to kind of hold on to or move towards or take with me as I move forward? if it's during the day, it's like, okay, what do I need to hold on to? What did I learn from today? What happened today that I just need to let go of? Just, let it go. And then, what do I need to take with me moving into tomorrow? And if you do it at night, sometimes it's good because you can think about your day and see how that might apply. So if you're newer to reading, trying to figure out what it might mean in a future sense can be more difficult. Whereas if you think back on your day, you often can have those connections of, oh, that connected to this energy. So I find this to be really helpful at night, also just to zoning the mind down. Okay, I'm going to process and hold on to this, or let go of this. I'm going to process and hold on to that. That's going to help me. And now I'm going to think about moving into the future with this energy. So in this case, we would say, okay, something I need to let go of is control. So if the Emperor is all about creating control out of chaos, or just that idea of having control, being the at the helm of your own ship, so to speak, in this particular deck. I totally got interrupted, and now I don't remember where I was at. But, so, obviously this makes sense. You're letting go of that need to control. This is good. Many times having control and these kinds of things are good, but there are some times in which we have to let go of the need to control something, simply maybe because we can't control it, or we just have got to loosen up. We're too controlling. So this would be a message that says, okay, whatever, this tight grip that you were trying to have on everything all day didn't work, wasn't working, isn't going to work, let it go, right? And then here we have the 7 of Earth here. So in this deck, it's a pip deck, but these are crystals. So we have the 7 of crystals here. So 7s for me are about growth from stability. So what's interesting is it's not saying to let go of all stability, but let go of that tight grip of control. Because out of stable environment, keep your environment stable and all this kinds of things, because out of that is going to come new growth. 4 plus 3 for me is from 4, stability of 4 comes the growth of 3. And so there is that idea of from that stability is going to come growth if you don't strangle it, right? If you don't strangle it. So hold on to some stability because they're going to get some growth here, but you're not going to have anything grow if you're strangling it. And then going into tomorrow, going into the next day, we have these 6 of, in this case, I believe these are moths. I read these as moths. I guess they're butterflies, but I think of fire to the, or like moths to the flame, because this is the suit of fire. So it's also a transformative suit, so it could certainly be butterflies, but I just see them as moths, but whatever. Anyways, we have the number 6, which is about balance, right? So this is balanced, harmonious passion. This is our fire, the transformative energy in balance. Again, stability, not clenching control, and sort of keep things harmonious. Go into tomorrow with some more balance, because clearly that wasn't being achieved today. So I really do find that, but you can do that reversed towards, like if you start doing this at the beginning of the day, what do I need to let go of about, yesterday, right? What do I need to hold on to as I go into the day? What's something I learned from yesterday that I do want to hold on to that's going to help me today? And then, of course, what am I going into? What should I really bring with me as I go into the day? So that's you can do that at the beginning, or you do it the opposite way, which is what I often do, more as a retrospective at the end of the day. So that tends to be, if I'm going to do daily, I tend to be doing, one of those. It's either this, just again, this won't be an actual reading, but it's within, without, advice cards. The what to let go of, what to hold on to, and what to lean into, so to speak, over here. So that tends to be a way that I use a 3 card. And the other primary way that I would use a 3 card would be, let's grab another deck here. Well, here, I'll try. I'm kind of, I guess, using newer decks that I haven't used a lot. So let me just This is actually not my deck. This one's going back to, I have it out to send back to Patrick, but we'll just use it. This is the golden thread. So the other way is a more typical of, you know, past, present, and future that you see a lot. So, you know, I weave this into bigger spreads where I'll always kind of have a past, present, and future somewhere as sort of a linear, you know, thing that a lot of people use, right? So if we have the Ace of Pentacles in the position of the past, we have the Ten of Wands in the future, which I like this because we sort of like planting a seed, and that has grown into a lot of potential in the present. And the Five of Wands, being careful though. Again, 10 is a lot of wands, a lot of energy, so maybe needing to be careful in the future that it doesn't start to get a little bit unstabilized, because fives are a lot of times shake-up numbers. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that's negative. Sometimes we need a shake-up, right? Sometimes we need to have that because then that inspires a new beginning sometimes when we have these shakeups. So it's not that it's necessarily negative, but we also can see that, okay, there's a lot of creative energy here. Be careful that doesn't come destabilized in the future. And what can I do then to make sure that I kind of make sure I keep things a little more stable so that I can have that consistent creative energy as I move into the future. So kind of having that past, present, and future is also a really powerful way to use a 3-card. So I definitely think that 3-card, and those are the 3 primary ways that I use 3-card readings. What to let go of, what to hold on to, what to lean into, within, without, and advice, and then a past, present, and future. And so those are generally how I read them. Now, the other thing that you can do is, let me just kind of shift these back over here. The other thing that you can do is sometimes I don't have any positions in mind. You know, then I'm just going to lay 3 cards in one, although I don't really lay that way. So people ask me this. Sometimes you'll see me split for 3 cards, and they always ask me what I'm doing. So I'll just tell you. So I am I don't know what you call it. I don't go like this and find it and pick. I don't split, you know, like some people split, you know, different ways like that. Everybody has different ways in which they split. I am a tosser. I kind of focus and split. So I drop. But then when I'm doing 3 cards, most of the time, unless there's some reason why I'm not, I'm taking the first card from where my fingers hit, the second card at the split, and the third card at the bottom of the deck. If I'm not doing a position with a 3 card, then it's very often, this is the primary message here. So the 3 of fire would be the primary message, the idea of growth in fire, growth and transformation. And then these 2 cards are kind of supplementing information there. Have some clarity of sight, be clear, don't be overly emotional, cut through the emotions and get to the heart of things. That's going to help this growth of creativity and transformation. And with the 8 of Pentacles, this idea of mastery here is there. So that clear-sightedness and mastery is going to allow for great growth of creativity. So this being the primary card, and these sort of giving me extra information regarding that middle card. So if I don't have those positions I just talked about, that's generally how I would relate to to a 3 card. So this has just kind of been a ramble about how I use 3 cards. I think that, again, I can't, other than, again, my karma cards, which, again, I'm stringing together into a 7-card message. I never pull a single tarot card. And it's not that you can't. Many people, I would say the majority of people do pull single cards of the day. I just really love working. And I think maybe it comes from cartomancy. So when playing card readings, I mean, you're just always going to pull 3 cards. In Lenormand, you're always going to pull 3 cards. So I don't know if that's, you know, has obviously influenced the way that I read. But I really do love to see the way that cards, you know, interact with each other, and what those interactions say about each other. And that's, I think, quite powerful. So anyways, I hope that you found this interesting. It was just a little bit of a ramble, and I hope that you are all having a wonderful week and continue to do so.